All right, well, good afternoon or good morning. Welcome to the AALS section on technology, law, and legal education summer webinar series. I'm Drew Simshaw, chair of this year's summer webinar committee for the section, and joining me on the committee this summer has been Mason Clark, Danielle Copes, Kirsten Davis, and Elizabeth Farrell. And today's webinar is titled Designing an AI for Legal Reasoning course. Before we get started, I wanted to remind everyone that if you missed a past webinar this summer or any of the past webinars from previous summers for that matter, recordings are available on the AALS webpage unless presenters have asked us not to post a recording. So you can access that page by Googling AALS past webinars. The page is called Past Section Webinars and Recordings. It's aals.org/sections/webinars/past, and I can drop that link in the chat once we get started. So we're extremely excited to welcome today's presenters, April Dawson and Daniel W. Linna Jr. April Dawson is Associate Dean of Technology and Innovation and Professor of Law at North Carolina Central University School of Law, where she leads the school's Technology, Law, and Policy Center, which recently, under her leadership, launched a technology certificate program. Her undergraduate degree is in computer science, and she was a computer programmer before entering law. She teaches, among other courses, AI and the law, AI governance, legal technology equity and leadership, and, as she'll discuss today, AI and legal reasoning. She also serves in multiple leadership roles, including serving on the ABA Center for Innovation Governing Council, the ABA Science and Technology Law Section, and the ABA Center for Professional Responsibility Working Group on Regulatory Reform. I also want to acknowledge that April actually chaired the inaugural summer webinar series in 2019. So we thank her for starting what has really continued to be a great service for this community. Dan Linna is Senior Lecturer and Director of Law and Technology Initiatives at the Northwestern Pritzker School of Law and McCormick School of Engineering. His teaching and research focus on innovation and technology, including the use of artificial intelligence and data analytics to improve legal services delivery, as well as the law, regulation, and governance of computational technologies. He's an affiliated faculty member at Codex, the Stanford Center for Legal Informatics, and before law school, Dan was an information technology manager, developer, and consultant. So both of our speakers bring immense interdisciplinary perspective to today's topics. They'll try to monitor questions in the chat along the way, but they're also going to try to reserve some time for questions at the end. So with that, I'm pleased to hand things over to today's speakers.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, thank you, Drew. We're going to start off with some poll questions, and I'm actually at the sales conference and my internet seems to be a little glitchy, so I'm going to go off camera just to preserve some bandwidth, but I'm going to share my screen and we will start off with a couple of poll questions. All right, so we're using Slido. And you can use your phone and you can scan the QR code, or if you want to use your desktop, you can go to slido.com and then enter this number here. And when you sign into Slido, you should see this question. And this question is, do you think law schools should offer a dedicated AI and the law related course? And we know that's very broad. AI and the law can encompass a number of things, but think about it broadly, a dedicated AI and the law course. All right, so we've got, for those of you who aren't familiar with Slido, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you can see that we've got 34 and counting people who have answered. All right. And we have 81 folks on, so we're about 50% of the attendees, but it looks like close to half say yes, it should be a required course, and another third says it should be offered as an elective. That's really interesting. Dan, are you surprised?
Well, I guess we have a self-selected group here.
Yes.
I imagine some people are maybe curious, but I would assume that a lot of people are here because they think that we should be offering a course like this and or related courses. No, I think that's about what I would have expected probably.
Okay, all right. And let's just look at some of the other options. Let's see. No one's unsure, so that's good. Just a couple of folks, maybe one, don't believe that AI warrants its own course in the law school curriculum. And all right, so great. Okay, so let's do the next question. So does your school offer an AI and the law related course? So yes, we offer a dedicated course. I'm not sure, not currently, but a course is in development. No, but faculty have expressed an interest. And no, there are no current plans.
Definitions is one of the difficult components of this because there are classes, I think, see in the chat about law practice or law and regulation. So pieces of this come into a lot of different types of classes. So exactly how you decide whether you have an AI in the law course there's some gray area.
Mhm. All right. Okay, so we've got about half of the participants or attendees who have answered. And yes, we offer a dedicated course exclusively on AI and the law. And another close to quarter, there has been an interest that's been expressed. Okay, all right. Well, thank you all. So Dan, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you.
Yeah, well, I think as we were just talking about, one of the really interesting questions is, what type of classes would fit into this category as far as AI and legal reasoning or AI in the law? And first of all, I did a project, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, where I started to try to look at innovation and courses in this space, and people were teaching a lot of AI in the law courses. And for some of them, that just meant what is the law of AI, and for other people, it meant how AI is being used in law practice and in courts. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to call my course, and I've been teaching a version of it for 10 years now, AI and legal reasoning, is just to be as clear as possible that I was looking at AI for legal reasoning or legal task from the perspective of the lawyer or legal aid organizations, or creating tools, self-help tools for people, or in courts or in different government settings. So there's a lot of different types of courses, and just at the bottom of the screen here, I touched on a couple of different types of courses. There's many different examples. When April and I were thinking about this, April and I are working on a textbook. We're working on a textbook for Aspen right now. So we've been thinking about this a lot, about what would an AI and legal reasoning course look like. And I hope that we get to a place where in our curricula across different law schools, we'll have different versions of these courses. We'll have a legal technology course that's kind of an introduction to tools and allows students to explore and think about how to use tools. I think that can be integrated into a lot of different types of courses, including an AI in legal reasoning course. One of the things that April and I have really been trying to do in putting this textbook together is trying to make it help develop this as a field where professors can do research and writing, and hopefully junior professors will stay in the future. Hey, I'm going to be an AI and legal reasoning professor, and that's going to be the area I'm going to get tenure in. So we're trying to lay out some of the scholarship. There's been a real big increase in scholarship in this space, looking at generative AI and AI tools on how they do. How they perform at legal reasoning or increasing access to justice. So there's really important research to be done in this space, whether you're a junior scholar or senior scholar, or even just dabble in doing scholarship here and there. I think there's some really interesting questions. And so one of the things you could think about is a course that in a practical way pulls together the scholarship and helps understand, well, what is legal reasoning? How are AI tools being used to conduct legal reasoning, solve legal problems? In covering that in that kind of a course. Another reason why professors might want to teach here is just to learn about AI and its impact on law. And it's, no matter which aspect you're looking at, law practice, access to justice, the effect on the rule of law, there are definitely implications. And I think some people are kind of oh, I wonder where this is going to go, and sitting back and waiting and seeing. And I'd like to encourage everyone to thinking about being more proactive and getting engaged and thinking about what are the values and goals of the law, rule of law, access to justice. How do we make sure AI is used across this space in a way that is consistent with those values and goals? And so again, though, there's a variety of different courses. At Northwestern, we have one of my colleagues, Jesse Bowman, teaches a legal technology course. I teach AI and legal reasoning, where I like to try to get in deeper into the technologies themselves and what is legal reasoning and the ethics of it, of course. We have an innovation lab where we have computer science students and law students work hand in hand in developing technologies with external partners, legal aid organizations, courts, law firms. Some schools have AI and research and legal writing courses. There can be e-discovery courses that generative AI and traditional machine learning AI tools are used in e-discovery. That can be an entering point for thinking about some of these questions. So lots of different types of questions, but one of the things we've been really thinking about too is how to bring some of the research that's being done in this space to supplement the way that AI is going to be used in legal reasoning and legal services delivery.
All right. And so I'm going to talk about why law schools should consider offering an AI and legal reasoning course. Because if this is a course that you are interested or the faculty are interested in teaching, sometimes we've got to make that pitch to the administration. And so this will kind of equip you with some things that you can think about. So, of course, this particular course, and we'll talk about it more, Dan and I, can be an experiential course. And even if it's not a dedicated experiential course, there are a lot of hands-on simulation exercises that facilitate the learning. And so Dan has taught it, as he's mentioned, for, like a decade. And several times he has taught it as an experiential course. When I taught it last year, I taught it as an experiential course. And we need more and more experiential courses. We know that you learn best by doing. So you learn the information and then actually applying that information. And so this course facilitates that. Also, it facilitates professional identity formation. And so we know that this is a relatively new requirement, ABA requirement. And I'm sure, particularly because, as Dan mentioned, this is a self-selected group, that most folks have heard about the lawyers who have filed pleadings that include fake cases. And so when students think about their professional identity formation, thinking about how is it that you kind of show up as a lawyer? What do you think about in terms of how you engage with technology, which is increasingly disrupting the practice of law? So as we want our students to kind of picture the type of lawyer they are going to be, lawyers increasingly have to be able to navigate the digital space. And so if they can do that in law school and kind of reflect on the type of lawyer that they want to be, this really does kind of facilitate that as well. The other thing that I would say about these fake cases, fake citations cases, we have a couple of orders that have been filed by courts where we have, fake cases. These, opinions, reflecting on what the lawyers have done are really excellent reading for our students, because sometimes they don't fully appreciate how not being really particular about your work, how that can impact you. And so just having them read these cases and kind of talking about it and putting themselves in the role of a lawyer goes a long way in terms of that professional identity formation. The other thing is employers are expecting students to understand and use AI, right? And so Dan just put on an excellent PLI, Practicing Law Institute, CLE, I guess it was maybe 2 weeks ago, going on 2 weeks ago. And it was all about AI in the legal practice. And so you have lawyers and judges and practitioners, legal professionals talking about how AI is disrupting the space and what's being done out there on the ground, if you will. And employers are expecting students to have an understanding as Dan said frequently throughout that CLE, a functional understanding. We all have to have it, and we have to make sure we prepare our students. The other thing is, and this is really an opportunity for us to bring practitioners inside of the classroom. We are not, even those of us who have a tech background, well, I'll just kind of speak for myself. Even though I have a tech background, I was a programmer many, many years ago. I am not actually practicing in this space. So to be able to bring someone who's actually doing the type of work that we are educating our students about into the classroom really makes it a much more dynamic professional experience. And that allows the law schools to actually deepen relationships with outside partners, with alums, and also then to turn around and to potentially assist alumni and employers about how these tools are being used within the legal profession.
Yeah, just related to that last point about alumni, from a law school perspective, I think that's another reason. I think alumni are expecting it, and could be opportunities to put on programs and invite your alumni to build goodwill with your alumni, helping train them, expose them to this. I think there's a lot of untapped areas to get some funding, to get gifts in this space as well. And some of you may be thinking very strategically like that and thinking about how technology, and some of you are leading programs already doing this, having a big impact on thinking about how technology is going to be used in legal services delivery, increasing access to justice. And I think there's a lot of untapped opportunities there, which is not just moving funds that an alum would have given to the school from one area to another, but getting new people excited about supporting things going on at the law school. And then just from the student perspective, they need to know how to use AI responsibly and well in their career. And I think we maybe over-rotate sometimes to the ethical problems and the worries, and we don't touch it and it can harm you. I think the law firms are really looking at this from a different perspective, and maybe not all of them, but I think it's only a matter of time. I mean, and legal aid organizations, small law firms, they all see that these are tools they're going to have to figure out how to use well in their practice. And I'm not suggesting there's going to be artificial general intelligence that's going to totally disrupt everything in some near short period of time. But the existing tools are capable. There's a lot of things that they can do. And so students need to understand how to not have the problems like hallucinations and things like that, but understand how they can actually use them well in their career. And that requires a functional understanding of how these tools work. If it's just magic, how can you evaluate it? How can you ask the right questions inside the organization? If it just seems like it's magic to you, how can you think, well, these are the things I do as a lawyer. How might AI augment what I do? Because that's the kind of 2.0 version of this. Right now, we're just applying AI to the things we've always done. And some people are starting to think like, well, how would we transform? How would we redo it if we thought about how to really make best use of technology and a people process data technology approach? Legal employers expect new hires to know these things. They expect that students are technology, digital natives. That doesn't mean they understand this, but most employers, just based on that alone, expect that students would know it. And I think there's a real opportunity here for students across all sizes of law firms and organizations, that if you come out of law school and you can say, hey, I had this class and I'm curious and I know about these things and I understand how these tools can be used and what you need to do to be able to build things, it can be a real opportunity for them inside of the law firm. It's valuable for management of law firm, the partners in the law firms, and their clients are looking for lawyers who understand these things and can help them balance, how am I going to use the AI tools? How do I do it responsibly and ethically?
All right. So as far as an AI for legal reasoning or AI legal reasoning course, what are the goals and the learning objectives? And so kind of going back to making sure that we have and our students have a foundational understanding of these tools. It starts there. What is AI? Do we have it? Again, yeah, it's not magic. What's going on under the hood? We don't have to go into great detail, but you do have to have an understanding of how the technology works. So you can figure out what are the appropriate use cases, what are the benefits, what are the risks, what are the challenges. And if you don't have a functional understanding of the tool, then you can't properly assess that. And how are these actually being used within the legal space, specific legal task? You can't talk about AI without talking about the ethical and legal implications. So when we think about bias and fairness and accountability and transparency and governance and, can we as lawyers um, really engage with the technology and think about the societal implications of the tool if we don't have these robust discussions about the benefits, but also the harms. Again, this is just kind of a refrain, develop skills to responsibly evaluate and deploy the tools. And then prepare students for interdisciplinary collaboration. And so one of the real interesting and I think beneficial things that we see at this moment is that lawyers are having to talk to data scientists, having to talk to cybersecurity specialists, having to talk to process improvement folks. And so, as we think about how we're educating our students, again, bringing folks outside of the classroom, inside of the classroom, allow students to develop those skills to talk to folks in other disciplines because it's absolutely necessary when we think about the intersection between AI and the law.
And as far as the course structure, and this is largely based on the book that April and I have been putting together. And one of the reasons why I really was really excited about the book is I've been putting together my own content for years when I'm doing this, but I, really hadn't gotten around to editing very much of the material. And so I was giving students long law review articles or long cases, and it wasn't really edited the way it should be. And then that would limit what I could cover. And this really gave us an opportunity to think about, well, what should be covered in a course like this? And the other thing reason why we wanted to do this is, it was a big barrier to entry for us to teach this class, and we both benefited from conversations with others and sharing syllabuses with others and things like that. But to be able to put together a textbook that we can show someone like, well, this is what a course could look like. So hopefully you'll all want to see an evaluation copy. That doesn't mean you'll end up using it for your classes, but hopefully at least the work that we've done here to try to structure this and think what a course could look like will inspire people to think, well, okay, I can now see what a course might look like. I can figure out how to put it together. And then one of the other challenges is if you're kind of more or less just a casual observer, it can seem like, well, it changes every week. How could you possibly teach a course on AI and legal reasoning? Like it's different this week than it was last week. But AI and law as a field has really been around for 50 years. So there's research in this space. And in this particular structure for the proposed course, we spend the first chapter talking about what is legal reasoning and looking at computation and legal reasoning and asking questions. And I think that's so important just to get students thinking about that. At bottom, this is really a question about, well, when we say we're teaching students legal reasoning and lawyers engage in legal reasoning, well, what is that? What is it that humans do? What might AI systems be able to do? If those systems can do those things, what's left for humans to do? How is practice going to change? What are the things we'll do more of? What are the things we do less of? Really deconstructing that and thinking deeply about that. And when you look into that inquiry, one of the surprising things about our profession, of course, is that we're all over the place as far as defining what is legal reasoning. Like, what do we really think that is? Is it different than what they teach in other rigorous programs across campus? Many, including myself, will probably argue it's not so different, maybe. But that it's an interesting inquiry. And then going into AI and laying out it in a way so people can understand it. Not so you need a PhD in machine learning, but talking about inputs and outputs and really kind of understanding the different types of AI tools. How are these systems developed? How is it that they're capable of doing the things that they can do? We have a whole chapter devoted to the rules of professional responsibility. There's a lot to cover and discuss there. Evaluating AI, we see more and more scholarship on looking at a system. Well, how would you test this system? What kind of questions do you expect it to answer? How do you determine accuracy? What is a hallucination? How do you measure that? What sort of stability would you expect in outputs? How can we make sure a system is valid and reliable when it's being used by judges or others? We spent a fair bit of time talking about there's more and more cases and where judges have talked about using generative AI and ChatGPT and making decisions. So we go through that. look at disputes as a separate area, and think about, we had a lot of back and forth about thinking, how do we frame this so students can understand, because they don't often know a lot yet about practice. But if we just talk about a functional way, like, oh, tools can summarize or tools can do this or that, we wanted to ground it in particular practice areas. And we decided to look at disputes, transaction and contracts, and then public law and compliance. And the last one, we'd have a part on criminal law. And then, we include a chapter on regulation of AI so that we can just talk a little bit about what's happening there. And then we're going to include in the book a couple of chapters that would help students think about, if you're in a law firm, for example, how do you think about making innovation actually happen? Learn just a little bit about design thinking or lean thinking. How do you look at a process, understand where things get done, how you might improve that process, collect data, understand what the people do, and then implement technology, and how much you make a business case. How do you kind of figure out whether it makes sense to use technology in that space? And then one of the other things, and April already touched on this, is just there's a lot of opportunities for experiential learning. You can run simulations, you can have students do projects, you can have students develop different tools, which is even easier now with, when they can use ChatGPT and other tools like that. They can use low code, no code platforms, a lot of ways to do hands-on sort of experiential learning in a course like this.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing. And what Dan and I are going to do is to show you a couple of tools. So Dan was just talking about the experiential nature of the course. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you a tool. Well, actually, I'm going to show you first Courtroom 5. All right. So some of you may be familiar with Courtroom 5. Those of you who are in the clinical space, access to justice space, may be familiar with this platform. And this is a platform that's designed for pro se litigants. And many of you may know that the Legal Services Corporation's last report, kind of looking at access to justice, determined that 92% of low-income Americans do not have access to legal representation or even support or counseling. And we know that there's a huge problem in this country, access to justice gap in this country and the world, quite frankly. And so Sonia Ebron and her partner, they're actually based here in North Carolina. And so I know them personally. They created this really wonderful platform that just kind of walks individuals through representing themselves in court. Now, even if you have access to this platform, it is still an incredibly daunting task. And so one of the things that I wanted to be able to do is to help my students understand a couple. One, we talk about the access to justice issue and how what role technology may play in solving that problem. We've talked about the challenges of being, even with them having gone through a couple of years of law school, the challenges that they may experience, especially if we're thinking about civil procedure and just, kind of how you navigate the court. And so I wanted to create a simulation for them so that they could utilize Courtroom 5 and assume a persona of a pro se litigant. And that was going to accomplish, quite a few things. So I created this GPT. So this is my Chat GPT page. And you can see over here, I've got these different kind of GPTs. And I've got this one here that's called Courtroom 5 Law Students. And I'm going to show you. So this is a Courtroom 5 student assignment designer. So again, as I mentioned, my students have to assume a persona, and then they have to use Courtroom 5 and walk through the process of creating some pleading as though they were a pro se litigant. We were able to get a access to Courtroom 5 at a reduced rate, which the company makes available to any law school that is interested. And so my students are able to set up their own kind of account. And I decided to use a custom GPT so that one, we could build it in class together. And it would also allow my students to have a personalized assignment. So I didn't want to come up with the persona for them. Um, and I wanted it to be different for every student. So this is what we kind of worked on together as a class. And what they need to do is, and so this says this GPT generates an assignment for law students. The student will enter a broad subject, legal subject, and the GPT will suggest an issue, and the student will, and it will come up with this assignment for my students. So let's just say, for example, student wants to do an assignment based on tort. All they need to do is just put in that broad legal topic, and then the GPT will say, okay, well, great. There are a lot of tort related issues that are suitable for this courtroom 5 assignment. And then they have to drill down a little bit more. So the student can say, okay, I want to do, let's do a dog bite liability case. They can just put in 7, right? Makes it really easy. Or they could type dog bite liability. And now what the GPT is doing is creating the actual assignment that the student has to complete and then upload to Canvas. And so this is dog bite liability. This is the actual assignment. You see the factual scenario here. You see my student is assuming the persona of Rosa Mendez. All the information, you've got the defendant, you've got the defendant's attorney, and then they actually have the assignments. My students will go to the Courtroom 5 site. They will actually draft one of these, like they have to draft at least 2 of these documents going through Courtroom 5. So a complaint, motion for summary judgment. They have to write their strategy out. They have to do a reflection paper, difficulties faced of pro se litigants. How is courtroom 5 helped or hindered? And so this assignment, I'm going to stop sharing right now so Dan can share his, but this assignment allowed me to hit a number of different things. And that's just one example of that I wanted to share. And so Dan, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. And can you see my paper topic assistant GPT screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to give an example of some GPTs I created in my course. And I had students then in teams, they picked different practice areas or subject matters or problems they wanted to work on, and they worked in teams to build GPTs, present about what they were doing, and then do a demo of their final tool as just a small project in my AI and legal reasoning class. But I created these mentors and tutors, and I think there's huge untapped potential for us to do these sort of things in classes in all sorts of areas. And what I've done here is I've created 3 different they read a paper in my class, and I wrote created a GPT on choosing the paper topic, one to give feedback on their outline, and then another one to give feedback on their final paper. And what I've found is, and I asked them to turn in the transcript of their interaction with these assistants, and I found that the interaction with the assistant is wonderful. I see students truly engaged, learning about how to pick a topic, how to write better topic sentences, how to write a strong thesis, and how to write a great final paper with good headings and things like that. So, and the final papers are much better. Now, I still give feedback, but it allows me to give feedback at a higher level. And so first of all, I created this, what can this assistant do for me? You click that and it'll tell you, hey, I'm here to talk about AI and legal reasoning class. I've been doing a 1,200 to 1,400 word essay. I'm thinking about increasing that a little bit, but I do find that I think that we ask students a lot of times to write lengthy works, and then when you get out in practice, you have to write more concisely. And so really ask them to get into deep analysis and something that looks more like a blog post, I think it can also be very effective. But in prior iterations before I had this tool, I'd have students who turn in a topic and say, my topic is AI and access to justice, right? Way too broad. Okay. And if you want to see the sort of analysis. And so they, and I've got a bunch of different prompts here. Okay, so walks you through why do you want to do that, and it asks who your audience is and so on. And so I don't want to go ahead spend a ton of time going through this. I do want to show you though that there's a lot of prompt engineering behind this to get this to work. Now, some of you, if you follow Ethan Mollick's work, I was inspired by Ethan Mollick's work on this, but I've done a lot of other reading and work on prompt engineering as well. And so I've created other sorts of tools. But you'll see one of the things you might be surprised by is the amount of prompting here. Okay. And I make it very clear the different questions I ask and things like that. And so I've reviewed a lot of different transcripts. I've used this in a lot of different classes now, and I've found it to be work great. And the students tend to really, really like it. They get helpful feedback, and it improves their final papers. And this is really one of the things that has really convinced me even more so. I was already bought in, I was already drinking the Kool-Aid, but it's convinced me even more so that we need to get our students using these tools, because if the students who are using these tools have a tremendous advantage if we train them in a way to use them responsibly and use them well. It's not just put in one prompt and get back a bunch of output. People have been using these tools a fair bit, understand that. But using them iteratively, using them in a responsible way, absolutely it's going to help improve your output. I didn't have a study here where I can definitely demonstrate that there was learning going on through this process, but the sort of engagement I saw with these tutors, these AI assistants, it blew me away. Just the way that the students were getting feedback and really critically assessing what they were doing and thinking about what they were doing. So I think there's huge untapped potential in introducing things like that in a class and getting students working with those tools in classes like this as well.
All right, we want to share just a couple of resources with you. This is a really valuable resource because you can find information about what other professors are doing. So Dan and I created this group it's hard to believe, it's 2 years ago. AI law, well, actually a year ago, AI and law related course professor lists. And so you can see there are over 300 professors in this list. And the professors will put the courses that they are teaching, and you can take a look at the courses, and professors are sharing like their syllabi and their materials. Now, not all of these professors are actually teaching courses, but they are interested in some way. And so this is an open group. It's not just law professors. And so let me just show you real quick. So we'll do professors who are currently teaching so you can see. So for example, we've got Alice here. She's actually teaching this generative AI course. We'll click on that and see what details she has for that. So this will take you to her course, the description. She doesn't yet have her materials posted, but a lot of professors do have their materials posted. Another way that you can find courses, if you're interested, say you want to do a course or you're interested in like AI policy and governance, you can see a list of all of those courses. You've got the description, you've got information about the professor. You should feel free to reach out to folks. So this has been a really wonderful resource as well. And I know we're getting to the point where we want to be able to answer questions. Yeah, so Dan, we've got about 5 minutes. So yeah, why don't we see if folks have questions? Feel free to come off mute.
Yeah, raise your hand maybe first. But yeah, and I'm happy, and I know April is too, to stick around for a little bit longer if there are more questions. But please be happy to hear your questions, reactions, comments.
Is anyone actually teaching a similar course or a course where you have been engaging with these tools, and what has your experience been? Because I'm thinking about the poll question, and it looked like there were a fair amount. Oh, okay. Angela, great.
Hi, actually, I had a question that I wanted to ask Dan about those chat GPTs that you created, because I think about a lot of sort of seminar courses where those prompts could be really useful. And I'm just wondering if you could provide some information or resources on how to do those prompt engineering.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so Ethan Malik and Rob in the chat asked about this. He's got a great blog, and he's a professor, a business school professor at the University of Pennsylvania at Wharton Business School. And if you just look at some of the prompts he's put together, that can give you a great start on that. And once you get started with that, and I'd be happy to share my prompts if you want to email me. I have no, I've borrowed what I can find and tried and tinkered with it and worked with it. But I think looking at some of his work is excellent because he's approaching from the perspective of an educator. And then there are other resources out there. You can see that I have a caveat about privacy, right? You need to think about that privacy repercussions, FERPA compliance. More and more schools, like, and I have to think about, we've got Copilot available here at Northwestern now, and I might need to try to think about porting some of that over to Copilot. But it's a lot of a little bit of trial and error, but so much of it is just giving clear, detailed guidance on what you want the tool to do, and it'll do it pretty well, particularly in an area like that where you're giving advice, kind of generalized advice on how to improve writing.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I will add that the tools are actually incredibly helpful in helping you come up with the script for your GPT. It won't be perfect. And so, the way we get better with these tools is really just to use them. So, Angela, do you use like either ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude?
Yes, I used a lot of them. So ChatGPT, Claude are my two favorites.
Okay.
Our university just noted that we have access to Copilot, so I've been starting to play around with that as well.
Okay. So one thing that you might want to do is in ChatGPT, just say, I'm interested in doing a custom GPT for this class. What do you
Okay,
suggest? And the tools have gotten incredibly helpful in walking you through the steps, asking you additional questions. So yeah, I would give that, I wouldn't wait. I'd go ahead and just jump in and let it assist you.
I
great.
see.
Thank you.
I see that Rachel has a question. I'm glad you raised this, Rachel. I meant to mention this. Do students need to pay for ChatGPT 4.0 to use these chatbots? No, they do not. But I have run into a little bit of a challenge where sometimes student will use it and they'll get a notice that, well, your free usage for the day is over. And I think part of it is because they're using it to do other things, and then they come to use the GPT. For the most part, it's been fine to just say, well, then, okay, wait till tomorrow to use it. But if they are waiting right up until the deadline, that can create some challenges. But it's not, they can still use it through the free account. One of the ways around that is actually the last time I taught my class, I required students to sign up for the $20 a month. That there was no textbook, that was the only cost. That does create a burden on students to ask them to do that. But as long as you're thoughtful about how you put this in, and you strongly encourage students maybe to get started early and then have some flexibility if they run into that problem. But that is something you have to think about, is access to the different tools, and also thinking about if they have the paid version, is it going to work better for them in some way? I mean, that is something else I worry a little bit about, equity and how these tools work.
Mhm. And I'll add to that, there are three ways that you can access ChatGPT.
Is there an
So you
emergency?
can, uh-oh.
Okay, go. Oops, sorry. Hold on one second.
Okay. Oh, okay. Um, so the other thing that let's see, so there are three ways that you can access ChatGPT. You can access it without having an account. So you're just, you go on the site and you're just using it, and that's the least amount of usage that you can get out of it. You can get a free account where you actually do set up an account, but you're not paying. And then there's the $20 account. Actually, there's four. A $20 account. Then there's the $200 a month account. And so if the students want to be able to use the GPTs, they have to at least set up an account. It can be a free account, but they can't just use the, just kind of the browser version. And let's see. Oh, Corin put in here that June 11th. Oh, okay. So there was, oh, great. Thank you. There was a webinar that actually showed the creation of the custom GPTs. Wonderful. And there's another one, Will said, there's a wonderful 10-day blog post. Oh, okay. So Vail, okay, provides that. Thank you. So we've got some good additional resources in the chat. Dan, everything okay?
Yeah, the fire alarm was going off, but it's just a false alarm, unfortunately. So yeah, everything's okay.
Okay. And let's see, Jane put in, Ethan has a great free course on Coursera to help use AI in teaching. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, Ethan and his wife. I will say that Temple put on the Institute of Law Teaching had a conference early this year, and Leah Malik, she actually was the keynote speaker. So yeah, she's wonderful as well.
Yeah, there's a wealth of resources out there. And I think the other thing, like April's comment about even asking ChatGPT, playing around with this stuff, just many of you I know are already doing that, but if you have any sort of hesitancy, I just think diving in and starting to work with the tools, going to create a GPT. You do need to have a paid account to create the GPT, but that's just the one person. Experimenting with it is just the best way to accelerate your learning.
All right. Well, if there are no other questions, actually, I do want to show Dan that last resource slide because there were a couple
Okay.
other things. Let's see. Yeah, let's go over this just real well. We'll share the slides because we are out of time, but we did want to just kind of highlight a couple of these other resources. So the AI Law Prof group, if you're interested in that, I'm going to put the link to sign up for that group in the chat. So if you're interested, feel free. We'd love to have you. Dan mentioned the book that we're working on, which should be available next year. And then also these PLI courses, they have some absolutely wonderful courses on law and technology in so many different areas. As legal educators, we can get access to these courses for free, and we can get our students access to the courses for free as well. So one of the things that I've done is I have had my students actually watch either a segment or a whole program on a particular topic that is timely, because I want my students to understand the conversations that are taking place in the actual practice, not just within the walls of the educational institution. So these are wonderful courses. As we mentioned, Dan organized this 2025 AI in the Law Practice CLE. It was a full day. You can get free access to that. And then the other thing that we just wanted to highlight was that Dan put together this AI in law practice for summer associates. And again, students have access to that for free. It will kind of help them understand what it is that they should be thinking about when it comes to the actual use of these tools. Dan, did you want to add anything more to that? That was a course you actually put together. So
Well, I was just say that it's free to anyone, and although it was tailored towards summer associates, I think anyone could benefit from watching it. Potentially, let me know what I got wrong. I'd appreciate the feedback. The other one was mostly panels and things like that, a full day. And as April pointed out, anyone, faculty, students, if you fill out a scholarship form, PLI will grant it, and then you can get access to programs like that.
Right. Okay, well, I think we are fully out of time now. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Julia.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks to both our speakers for this a great presentation and great discussion, and thanks to everyone for sharing so many wonderful resources in the chat. I just dropped in again, and Corinne shared earlier the link to our past webinars and the webpage where this webinar will be posted if you'd like to share it with anyone. So thank you again to our speakers today, and wishing everyone a great rest of the week.